Welcome to this episode of Chatting with Stacks. I'm your host, Bill Stacks, and today I got Jack O'Halloran. What's up, Jack?
You got it all, my friend. How are you?
I'm doing great. Things are really good.
Terrific.
Was in a film. I'm taking in your footsteps. I'm trying to follow in your footsteps a little bit.
A star is born, huh?
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm not trying. I'm doing it,
That's a good way to do it. You got to do it. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, so today I want to talk about how you even got involved with the film industry and what were the steps like. You were a professional boxer at the time.
I'll tell you, it started back in 1967 when I was fighting up in Boston, and I was undefeated. Steve McQueen came up to shoot a picture of Thomas Crown Affair, and he and I became very good friends. We looked after him, made sure he was okay and all. And he said, "Oh man, you have to come down and get on the set." He said, "You got to. I'll put you in the movie. You got to come back to Hollywood, man. We'll have a ball." I says, it's a whole new career you could have. And I said, "I'm undefeated. I'm looking to fight Muhammad Ali, and you want me to quit boxing and come into the movie business? I don't think so." So I turned it down, and then I did fought a guy, Manuel Ramos, who was ranked number 2 in the world, and he was champion in Mexico, and I knocked him out in L.A., and they offered me a picture of The Great White Hope with James Earl Jones, which was the biggest movie in Hollywood. And there was Raymond Patriarca put the deal together with Fox to get me off the streets. It would send me to Spain for 6 months, keep me out of trouble. And I went out and met the producer. They flew me out, and I met the producer, and guy gave me a big song and dance. "Well, you're going to do this, you're going to do that." I said, "Wait a minute. I just knocked out the number 2 heavyweight in the world. I'm in line to fight Muhammad Ali, and you want me to go to Spain for 6 months?" I said, "Well, I thought this deal was already made." He said, "We're going to pay you $1,600 a week," and da-da-da. And that was a lot of money in those days, I guess.
How old were you at the time?
I was, let me see, it was 1968. I was
Early 20s?
No, I was like 30, 1960. I was born. I was 25.
So when did you get into boxing? What year did you start? Did you start early with the boxing?
No, I started boxing when I was actually played pro football first. So I was.
You had an amazing career. Who were you playing pro football with?
I was signed with the Jets, but it was in an era. I left school after a year, and the Jets grabbed me right away because I was 280 pounds and ran a 4.6 40.
Yeah, you're a big guy, so.
But I was very quick, and so the Jets grabbed me, but you couldn't at that time in life. You couldn't play pro ball until your class graduated college, and they should still have that rule actually. Too many young kids are getting hurt because they're too young. Their bodies haven't matured yet. So they had a league on the East Coast that was like a farm team for pro sports, and a lot of us played the Christie brothers, and there was a lot of us that were waiting to go up and play in the pros until our class graduated, and we all played in this league on the East Coast. And when it came time for me to play, I went up to Eubank. I said, I would like to get down to Philadelphia because I got a lot of friends playing down there. And he said, "Well, you got a home here?" And I said, "Well, I'll give it a shot in Philly. And if it doesn't work out, I'll come up here." And I went down to Philadelphia, and they sold the team that year to a young kid, Jerry Wallman, who was a nice kid. But he hired a coach, Joe Kuharich. And I watched this guy trade a championship football team away in 3 months. Traded Sonny Jurgensen and Tommy McDonald to Washington for Norman Snead, who couldn't play a little bit. Traded great ball players to L.A., to Green Bay. He was just dissipated the team. And I came out of a meeting one day with Timmy Brown, who was a great running back. And I said, Kuharich walked right by us. I said, "Well, you don't talk to people?" He said, some kind of a grumble. I said, "Take this team and stick it up your ass." And Timmy Brown said, "While you're at it, trade me." And Muhammad Ali had just won the title. So I told some friends of mine in Philly, I said, I can beat that guy. And I wound up in the gym.
Were you fighting a lot back before this
No,
point? Like,
before I had only had a few. But when I was a young kid, I was taught how to fight. And my grandfather was a tough street guy, fight, and he taught me boxing. And I had a few things in the PAL when I was a young kid. And but I couldn't box amateur because I was signed with the Jets. I was a professional athlete. And those days you couldn't do that. You could do it today, but you couldn't do it then. Couldn't if you were a pro, you were a pro. Couldn't box amateur. So I went in the gym and went down to like 235 pounds and got ready. And they had a great trainer, had a great management group who they paid me a lot of money every week to train, and started my career. And
what was your first fight like walking into that ring?
first fight was, it was kind of cool. It was up in Reading, Pennsylvania. I knocked the guy out in 52 seconds. And the guy was screaming after the fight because I split the whole side of his head open. And he's yelling at his manager. You told me this guy couldn't fight and all this, and it was his first fight, and blah, blah, blah. Look what he just did to me. I was laughing like hell. So we went on, and I've had several fights in Philly. And then there was a problem that happened down there, and they put me on a train and sent me up to Boston. Then I fought out of Boston, and that's when I met McQueen, and I had several fights up there, and then I was traveling around the world fighting all over the place, traveling different states and stuff like that. When I was 16-0, and they went to get a physical, and they told me I had a disease called acromegalia, and they couldn't figure out how I could even be boxed. It's a tumor of the pituitary gland. And if your body puts out 10% growth hormone, mine was putting out 150. So it saps your strength, and it's supposed to make you depressed and all this jazz. But boxing was a day job for me because I was doing my father's business at night, and I had to have a day job so that I wouldn't have any problem with the feds or anything. So boxing was a great day job. So I boxed all over the place. They ignored the doctors and went ahead and just did what I had to do. And I wound up in California. He called me on the phone one day. He said, "Would you like to fight Kenny Norton?" And I said, "Where?" "San Diego." I said, "When?" They said, "Next week." I said, "Send me a ticket," because we had a lot of indictments against us for union business and stuff, and they were trying to crack down on some craziness. So I got out of town, and that way Kenny and I had a war. And actually, I could have won the fight. In the ninth round, people were standing on the benches screaming, yelling, because we were toe to toe. It took them 3 times to ring the bell before anybody heard the bell ring. And finally, the referee separated us. I was going back to my corner, and Norton ran across the ring and hit me behind the head and drove me into the ring post. And the commissioner was sitting right there, and he jumped up. He said, "If you can't continue, you just won the fight on a foul." I was so angry. I said, "I'll kill this guy." not realizing this is Norton's hometown, and he was owned by 2 billionaires, and they're looking to get him to fight Ali, and had me upset him would have been terrible. So I foolishly went out into the 10th round, and he got a split decision, and because it's where he lived, but I won the city, and I stayed there, and I knocked out a half dozen guys. And I won the California Heavyweight Championship for the guy Henry Clark that nobody wanted to fight. And I took the state title off of him. And there was a doctor down there who was a really good guy, a good friend. He said, "Jack," he said, "you got to go to Scripps and get a workup on this acromegalia thing because the disease will kill you. And I don't want to see it. You got to go, or I'm going to take your license away." So I went to Scripps, and they did a workup. And
did they have to remove the tumor or anything?
Well, that's what Scripps wanted. Scripps wanted to remove it. But if you did the operation, then you were on hormones the rest of your life, taking pills. You know what I mean? So I said,
Yeah.
that's bullshit. So I reached out to some friends of mine on the East Coast, and there was a doctor up in Mass General in Boston that had a procedure called the cyclotron proton machine, which they use today actually for prostate cancer and it's a great machine. So what it does is it's a laser, but it doesn't burn. It causes an inner explosion of the tumor. So I went up there and had the procedure done, and they whacked it out the first time. Boy, the guy just boom. I was one in 1,000 people that the first time shot on it, just banged it right out. And they wanted me to, because they had to bolt a thing to my head to bolt me to a machine, so I couldn't possibly move. I had to be perfectly still for them to hit this laser dead on the money. And so I had 4 bolt holes where I drilled.
Right into your skull?
Yeah, they had to bolt this thing, the apparatus to your head. So they told me I had to stay in the hospital for a week and a half or some jazz like that. But I had signed to fight a guy in Baltimore, Maryland. So I checked out of the hospital and went down. The doctor thought I was insane. He said, "Are you crazy?" He said, "You just had this procedure. You got to let your body acclimate to it." And I went down and fought a guy, Larry Middleton, in Baltimore. I trained one day for the fight. It was crazy. I should never have done it. So I blew a fight down in Baltimore. And then I got a phone call from my agent in California, because I did commercials when I was California heavyweight champion. And she called me up and said, they want you to do a movie with Robert Mitchum. And I said, what movie? Farewell, My Lovely. And you got to go up to New York and meet the director, and I think you should do it. And I looked around me, and I had a couple construction companies in South Jersey. And I looked around, I was shooting pool in a bar when she called me. And I said, maybe it's time. So I went up to New York and met this director, and he flew me out to California to do a screen test with Harry Dean Stanton. And I did the screen test, and Mitchum saw the screen test. He said, it's either him or I don't do the movie. So I blame it all on Robert Mitchum. he was great. He became like he was my mentor. He became like a father. He was actually terrific. He arranged for the first day I went to work. He picked me up. They picked him up, then he came and got me, and we had to go all the way downtown to LA, and he had me laughing and telling me jokes and shit. Got down to the set. We got in dressed, and we were going to do the very first shot I ever did. And we're standing at the bottom of a set of stairs, and he said to me, "You read that script, kid?" I said, "Read it." "Man, I know your part, Charlotte Ramping's part, John Ireland. We had a hell of a cast. It was a great cast in the film." I said, "I read it cover to cover." He said, "Good, throw it in the trash can." I said, "What?" He said, "Don't let me catch you doing what thousands of people in this town do, acting. Just be yourself." He said, "You've been a gangster all your life. Take yourself, put yourself in this character and walk down the street like you." And then he taught me all the technical aspects of the camera and all that. And when we did the first shot that we ever did, when he finished the first, started moving the cameras around, I looked at him, I said, what's going on here? He said, "You really don't know." I said, "I'm asking you a question." He said, "That's it, kid. That's all there is to this." I said, "That's all there is to this stuff?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Man, I'm a star."
Yeah, because you think it's so much more, right?
That became the tagline. That became the tagline on the film. And the first day I was working, I had to do a pickup shot, and he had left. So I said to myself, how the hell am I going to get home? If Mitchum left, I came with him. How am I going to get home? So I go down to the carpool place, and he's standing beside the guy, standing beside the car, smoking a cigarette, talking to the driver. And I said, "Wow, man," I said, "I thought you already went home already." He said, "Couldn't go home without the star now, could I?" Mitchum was great. He was probably the most well-read man I ever met. He was terrific. And Farewell, My Lovely was a great film. I mean, I actually could have probably gotten nominated for supporting actor in the picture. He set up a meeting with Johnny Carson and at the Polo Lounge. And I went to meet John, and he said, "Boy," he said, "if you come on my show, I'm going to get you nominated." because I thought the film was a great film. And I said, well, I thought about it for a minute. I said, your show's live, isn't it? He said, yeah. I said, I don't think I could do it. He said, why? Why? I said, well, because I'm going to come out on your show and you're going to ask me about my father, and I'm going to ask you where the men's room was at. He said, you would get up and leave? I said, yeah. I don't talk about my father. I don't want anybody talking about him. And you have to understand, I had just come off the streets to do this picture, you know.
Especially back then, it was.
And I didn't want anybody, you know, then you're on national television. He said, well, we'll arrange the questions for you. I said, John, you're the #1 news reporter in the country. You have Albert Anastasia's son sitting on your set.